Hey guys, Stu here. Back by popular demand, had a lot of people reaching out to me since we went into the second lockdown, asking when I was going to do some more kettlebell videos. So here we go. Thought it'd be a good idea for us to create a series of videos where I'll go through the basics of kettlebells, let's say Kettlebell 101 in a number of installments, show you some different kettlebell exercise or moves that you can then incorporate into circuits. If you're fortunate enough to have sourced some kettlebells or had friends who had kettlebells, have made them available to you, great thing to add into your workout. So first things first, kettlebells are probably one of the most versatile, probably one of the safest pieces of exercise equipment, but also probably one of the most misunderstood and probably the most intimidating to a lot of people piece of equipment. Looks kind of primitive or primeval, have this like weighted metal ball with a handle on it, and seeing people swinging it around. But when we really break it down into the concept of the kettlebell, we talk about how to safely work with kettlebells and then the moves and the concepts of it. It's actually very hard, in my opinion, to hurt yourself with kettlebells if you do the exercises properly and you respect the kettlebell and always operate in a safe manner, because you are dealing with a sub-maximal weight. So I typically work with 20 kilogram kettlebells, which is far less than my optimal weight for many exercises. So the really hurting yourself with the kettlebell, where typically people will get into trouble with kettlebells is where they actually don't respect the bell and they do something without thinking. They pick it up with a weight that they're not in a stable position, and they put stress on their back or something like that. So we're going to always emphasize safe handling of the kettlebell. So first things first, if we get familiar with the kettlebell, as I mentioned, most kettlebells, there's a couple different types that you will find. This is sort of a traditional Russian kettlebell. Most kettlebells that you are probably working with look like this one. They're made out of typically cast iron or steel, but typically they're cast. There's two parts to it. There's the handle, and then there's the ball or the bell itself. And then you've got sort of these two parts of the handle, which are typically called the horns. And it's important because there's different ways to grip the kettlebell, both from the handle, from the horns, and then actually holding the bell itself. And we'll get into it. A variation, you may see a different type of kettlebell called a competition kettlebell. If you're fortunate enough to have competition kettlebells, I'm envious of you. The big difference is with typical traditional bells, like most of you probably have, the weight is stamped on it, and since these are a solid cast, the bells will go up in size. So if you contrast, this bell, which is 6 kilograms, to this bell, which is 16 kilograms, obviously there's a difference in size. Competition kettlebells, one of the things you'll notice is they're all the same size. Typically the other thing is that instead of the handle kind of coming out, it goes straight up. So it looks like a larger ball with a handle. Typically the way you distinguish the weight of a competition bell is the color coding system. So it'll be yellow, purple, green, I think, which will denote the different weights. Because they're typically made out of steel, they're typically hollow, and they're designed to be the same size, and the weight is basically manipulated based on the thickness of the steel and different weights inside of it. But they're meant to be the same size regardless of the weight, which you'll see the benefits of that as we get into some of the exercises, but for these purposes, the bells that we're going to use today will work just fine. You may also see different variations on it. For example, this one is rubber coated, which is nice. Probably if you're working in your house house or in a condo, the first thing you should probably get accustomed to is you very likely will drop a kettlebell at some point. Don't get stressed about it, but just be conscious of your surroundings. Try to make sure you got space if you're in a padded area where you're not going to do damage. We're going to do our best not to, but it can happen. You may also find some different kettlebells. I'm not a big fan of adjustable kettlebells. It's an option if it's available to you. That's the only thing available to you. But I typically be a little bit concerned as we're swinging the adjustable. The other version that you may see are variations on the kettlebell where the actual, instead of being a round ball, it may be actually sculpted out. I'm not a big fan because you're going to see as we start to move into some moves like racking, the kettlebell, or we're going to do clean and jerks, where you actually want the ball portion of the kettlebell, because that becomes an integral part of how we actually rack it and hold it. In terms of weight, as I said before, these are sub-maximal weights, so you can actually use too light of a kettlebell, and I actually think probably using too light of a kettlebell is more dangerous than using too heavy of a kettlebell. If you're using too heavy of a kettlebell, typically it's just going to inhibit your ability to do the exercise or to do the maximum number of repetitions. If you're actually using too light of a kettlebell, then some of the things when we do things like swings, you may, cause yourself some injuries as the kettlebell flips. So generally speaking, I would try to use as heavy a kettlebell as you can to comfortably complete the exercises. And typically we're going to talk about doing 2-minute circuits. I'm going to encourage you to create 2-minute circuits and to do it. Doesn't sound like very much, but as you get into it, you'll see 2 minutes can seem like a long time. We're doing a continuous kettlebell circuit. So something that you can do a 2-minute circuit and still feel like you challenged yourself with it. So typically for females, I would suggest you should be using no lighter than a 6 kilogram weight, probably target an 8 kilogram weight for the average female. For men, I would like to see you not using less than a 12 kilogram bell, and that's probably about the right thing. 10 kilogram maybe, but 12 for the average male. I'm using 16s today because that's what I have. I'll often use 20s if I have them. You may see people going in heavier. As you progress in your exercises, I certainly encourage you to challenge yourself moving up in your weights. So, a couple other important safety considerations. So, when I was taught and certified in kettlebells, one of the things my instructor, Sean Mosen, talked about was respecting the bell, and the easiest way to do that, as he said, was treat every kettlebell as if it weighs 88 pounds. So regardless of what's printed on it, and no matter how small it is, if you just treat every kettlebell that you pick up as if it weighs 88 pounds, you will very likely not injure yourself. So what that means is, if I knew this kettlebell was 88 pounds, I wouldn't, try to pick it up kind of like off balance. If I was addressing it, I would be very careful about how I was picking up the bell, and I would ask that you do the same thing. To treat the bell, every bell, as if it weighs 88 pounds, regardless of what's on it. So those are kind of the kettlebell basics. Over the next few videos, we'll start to introduce some different foundational exercises. We'll talk about how to combine them into a circuit and the modular nature of that, so you can create your own circuits. We'll then eventually work our way up to some more advanced kettlebell moves like the Turkish get-up at some point. But I would encourage, if you enjoy the videos, please like them and leave your comments, as long as they're nice. And feel free to message me, or if you have questions or suggestions for other videos that you'd like to do. But let's get to it. So next video coming up next.